So Nate Hockman tweets, the hate speech law that Ireland is preparing to pass is arguably the most radical legislation of its kind we've seen in the West. It criminalizes the mere possession of materials that, quote, are likely to incite violence or hatred. Books, videos, or even memes on your phone. Look at this. This is amazing. Offense of preparing or possessing material likely to incite violence or hatred against persons on account of their protected characteristics. They say, let's see, a subject, blah, 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 person shall be guilty. Prepares or possesses material that is likely to incite violence or hatred against a person or group or person on account of their protected characteristics or any of those characteristics with a view to the material being communicated to the public or a section of the public, whether by himself or himself, blah, blah, blah. Prepares or possesses such material with intent to incite violence. We get it. You get it. Being reckless as to whether such violence or hatred is thereby incited. Yes, they're basically saying memes. If you, theoretically, if you have Netflix on your phone, Dave Chappelle made racial jokes. And for that, you're under arrest. I mean, this is it. This is like, part of me is actually excited for this. I'll be honest, because the line can only go so far until it goes off the edge. And then there's no line anymore. So they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and then it's gone. And everyone's just standing around like, okay, there's no rules anymore. For instance, like this, for instance, basically is saying, if you have on your phone a video of Dave Chappelle doing his stand-up routine where he makes fun of Chinese people, well, that's it. You're going to jail. Mm-hmm. But this is Netflix. This is like mainstream, international, top-tier comedy. Doesn't matter. In New York, they just banned discrimination. They signed into law discrimination on the basis of weight and height. You know what this means?
Insane, yeah.
This means that a 600-pound morbidly obese person can apply to be, to work for a government position, or let's say Starbucks. And then let's say they apply online. Then the Starbucks says, come in for an interview. Well, that person can't move of their own power. So they have a crane bring them to the Starbucks and they can't get in the building. And then they say, this is discrimination based on my weight and height, that I cannot enter the building for the interview. So Starbucks, all these businesses are going to have to they're going to have to remodel all their stores to have double doors to accommodate the massive and morbidly obese. The line only goes so far until it falls off the edge.
When we look back at architecture, it's going to be a crazy time. That's when the double doors come back. I mean, this is such a disturbing way of phrasing it, because this idea of likely to incite violence or hatred is determined by the government. So what does the government decide is likely? Like, there are all kinds of things I don't like that I'm sure the government is for. And so we know there's automatically a double standard for what materials are okay and what aren't.
All that really matters is culture. When we have the First Amendment in this country, you would still be arrested for obscenity. So like George Carlin, for instance, the 7 words you can't say on TV, he gets arrested for it. Yeah, so even though we have the First Amendment, back then, it didn't matter. Our culture did not allow it, regardless of what the Constitution said. So we talk a lot about the Constitution and the rights it guarantees, but let's be honest, they didn't really guarantee a whole lot until we started enforcing them and having the courts rule to enshrine these protections and set this precedent. So when we're looking at these bans, all that really matters, the government will decide whether or not you go to jail. That's it. They're basically, the law should say, we as the government can decide to arrest you for any reason and lock you up if we want. That's basically what the law says.
Did you see that in the no more discriminating against fat people in New York, the person who brought the bill, Sean Abreu, was inspired to bring the bill because he gained weight during COVID and thought people looked at him weird after.
No, really?
No, yes.
So he sued the government on what standing?
He didn't sue the government. He brought the bill. He's a city councilman.
Oh, I see.
He was inspired to bring the bill after gaining weight during the pandemic and noticing people didn't treat him the same afterwards. And he said, it's also about changing the culture and how we think about weight. When it was,
I love it. It's hilarious.
Yeah. When it was brought up before city council and people were arguing in favor of it, an NYU student said the desks were too small and this was a reason to not discriminate.
How much weight did this guy gain? I need to know.
Well, I was looking for pictures of him and he looks pretty normal. And the bill, of course, was backed by the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. And the chair of that group,
have that in this country.
Right? The chair of that group said, this is such a powerful moment for anyone who has ever faced discrimination simply because of the size of their body.